Sephardi Community Council. We're an online encyclopedia exploring many of the great rabbis that lived, especially in the Ottoman time period, from the Sephardi community. So we're looking at different councils and committees, synagogues and yeshivot, and one which stands out is the Sephardi Community Council, which we're going to talk about today. It was a Jerusalem-based committee which served as an unofficial governing body with the Sephardi Jewish community in the city prior to Israel independence. The organization purchased property from donations and endowments, which were then made available to Jewish people in need of shelter and resources. Now, we've spoken about this on various occasions before on this series. I think we've mentioned them, and very important also to talk about some of the histories within Laraset. Now, what's interesting is it was actually formed, I believe, during the 13th century, and most phenomenally, it was connected to Nachmanides, is credited as a founder. I think it was in the 1980s, quite recently. It split, I think, into many portions, and I don't think it's the same official body itself as it is. And the headquarters was based in Jerusalem, in Yerushalayim. The official languages was Hebrew and Ladino, and I think I'm not sure if it was the most recent president, but someone named Yecheskel Zakai had a prominent position there, most notably. And I think they had, for example, various different important properties all over Israel. Let's explore a bit of the history within regards to it. It's a very famous synagogue. Okay, now according to tradition, the committee was established by Nachmanides. This would serve as a community binder, let's just say, for many years during the Byzantine and Ottoman occupation of the land of Israel. Now, the organization was led by the Sephardic chief rabbis. I think beginning in the 19th century, it was led by the Hacham Bashi, who was seen as authority representative of the community in Israel towards authorities of the Ottoman Empire, as well as a supreme authority in Jewish matters. Interesting, come the mid-19th century, the committee suffered, I think at that point in time, there was a fracturing due to ethnic differences, and there was a Western committee split, followed by many other groups also at that stage in time. Okay, I think that was also most notably during the 19th century. The influence of the Sephardi Council was weakened to some degree, especially many Ashkenazi people were making aliyah from outside from Europe, coming to Eretz Israel. This would, let's say, reduce a large majority of the Sephardi community that was previously in place over there at that point in time. I think especially after the passing of Rabbi Yaakov Shaul Elishar, I think in 1906, there was a power struggle with regards to the status of the role of the chief rabbi at that point in time, and also following the First World War, the resources of the community had been greatly reduced at that point in time. Now, it's interesting. Let's explore a bit with regards to the British Mandate period. I think 2 months after mandatory Palestine was established, the committee was reorganized in a new format that lasted throughout the period as a legal entity. It had official duties such as supervision of the congregation's assets in Israel, income, and the management of educational foundations in their holding. That will be at that point in time. Now, I think following the First World War, the president of the committee was a lawyer of the name Samuel Lupu. I think during the Second World War, the president of the committee was a famous lawyer of the name David Abulafia. The committee was further diminished, I think, following the Holocaust, the horrors of the Holocaust, where many communities in Sephardi Jewish places, including Thessaloniki, Greece, in Bulgaria and in Yugoslavia, were killed or fled, and many Mizrahi Jewish people would immigrate to Israel following the exodus of the Jews from Middle East and North Africa. Now, the state of Israel, I think after the establishment of Israel, a large part of the holdings ended up partitioned in the Palestinian territories under Transjordan. The committee also lost its rights over its endowment from Sima Balililius. Very interesting enough. Now we can mention more. The family Elisha had prominent names over there, and David Sutton will be vital, and we'll speak about them soon. But I think in the mid-1980s, there was an association law was passed, and the committee was split into 6 sister associations, including the Spanish Community Committee, also the Sephardi Kedisha Society, and the Miskav Ladach Hospital. Now, we did an entire feature speaking about the history of the Miskav Ladach Hospital earlier on today, which I recommend everyone to look at. Now, this community committee owned much real estate in Jerusalem. For example, a plot of land at the Mount of Olives for burial of their members, residential buildings for housing. There were shops they owned in Jerusalem. In the Old City, they included Beit Gebul Almana, houses purchased for the poor, Beit Tamchol, there was also Talmud Torah for poor children, and courtyards around the 4 Sephardic synagogues, one in the name of Yochanan ben Zakkai and the Miskav Ledach respectively. They owned properties in the new city also, such as houses by the Torah sanctuary in Mishkonot Sha'anim, as well as houses in Yemin Moshe, for example, Ibn Israel, Beit Yisrael, in Machane Yehuda, the Shuk, where the market is, Zichron Moshe, in Rechavia, also in Shema, also in Kfar Shiloh, and also in Shimon HaTzadik, various places. Come with the year 1930s, about 530 people lived in apartments provided by the council, respectively. Now, a large number of wealthy Jews entrusted large endowments to the community board. I think its largest was Sima Balililos of Calcutta. I think in 1926, will leave 80,000 lira to the Yochanan ben Zakkai synagogue, along with dedicated funds to the purchase of 4 buildings for apartment complexes. Various large endowments were given by Chaim Aaron Valero and Rafael Aaron Gabay, as well as the Sephardic orphanage of the Borochov and the Wisachadorov families. Now, the committee continued to manage Miskav Ledach even after the establishment of Medinat Israel, the state of Israel, and built a new building for it in the Katamon neighborhood. I think at that point in time there was some opposition from the Ministry of Health. It operated as a private hospital without public support, and the building was initially built with donations from wealthy Sephardi benefactors, including Nissim Gaon and Leon Taman. The hospital went into debt and was sold to Kupat Cholim Miyuchedet, and the liquidation of the hospital lasted many years, and a lot of its endowment was then sold to recuperate costs respectively over there. So we can speak more within regards to this committee itself. We can see the history within regards to it. Obviously, it was led by the Ramban Council, which was established way early on in 1300. And the Chacham Bashir role, especially in the 1840s, had a huge part within regards to it. It was authorized within regards to the issue of an Ottoman government. There was a large religion authority was based within regards to the role of the Chacham Bashir, respectively. And as early as the 1860s, that would have seen, let's say, starting the split within regards to different neighborhoods and different parts of this committee, respectively, which would have like an impact on the committee as a whole, which we have to point out. Obviously, they would own various areas in different parts. Also, I think, also they would own, I think, parts of Mamilla area, which is now modern day Mamilla. I think the Jewish Community Council, I think, had properties in Jaffa also, and I think was very much connected to the Iraqi community, which you have to point out also. So that was very key. And they managed the Miskav Ledach Hospital, which was very crucial. We'll talk a bit about the Miskav Ledach Hospital in a minute. And it's actually interesting. I think during the British occupation, Mandate Palestine at that point in time, that would lead to various differences at that point in time. And community assets in land of Israel and abroad, the income would have, let's say, a variable with regards to charitable, educational, maintaining scholar foundations, assistance to charity, and assistance with regards to rabbis at that point in time. And I think, obviously, after the establishment of the State of Israel, with Jordan taking over Jerusalem at that point in time, that would lead to huge changes also. I think the committee's status was also weakened as a result of numerous struggles. I think at that point in time there was Sephardi community leadership. There would be leaders over there that would really help out, including someone named David Seton and Eliyahu Elisha. They were leaders at that point in time. And there was devastation at that point in time after the horrors of the Holocaust. Now, one of the committee's, let's say, main projects was the Miskav Ledach Hospital. Let's speak a bit about that for a minute. It was connected to many, let's say, communities of its time, and was an integral part, let's just say, of this committee, the Miskav Ledach Hospital. We've spoken about it on various occasions before. I think it was established in the mid-19th century. Originally, it was under Rothschild. I think it opened up in the year 1854. James Mayer Rothschild in of itself. But I think in 1888, the Sephardi Committee was have even more control of it at that point in time. I think there was a rabbi named Rabbi Mordechai Israel, who was a member of the Sephardic committee at that point in time, and a judge in the Sephardic court in Jerusalem. And there was various wealthy members of the community that would really help out in regards to growing, let's just say, this hospital in itself. I think at that point in time there was the Bikur Cholim also, that was another main hospital at that point in time that would mainly be in charge by the Ashkenazi community at that point in time. I think there was a Torah library in the hospital, and connected to Rabbi Heskia Medini, who was Rabbi of Hebron. I think Rabbi Shmuel Nissim at that point in time. They were the founders of the Miskabel Dach Society, which was obviously connected to the community, to the committee itself, in of itself. And I think there was other rabbis from Saloniki, for example, from Greece, that were connected. Obviously, after the War of Independence at that point in time, it would lead to some devastation within regards to the hospital, a relocation to Katamon at that point in time, which we've spoken about on various occasions before. But they would do important roles the whole time, especially even in Katamon at that point in time. I think the hospital itself would be named after pasuk in Psalms in the book of Tehillim. I think chapter 9, verse number 10 over there, interesting enough. And I think Miuchedet would take over the hospital, I think in 2005 and 2022. I think there'll be more further changes with the hospital, where I think the management company will be Medika at that point in time. Now, just to go back to the hospital itself, in 1854 was located in the old city of Jerusalem and was founded by Rothschild family. And I think the goal of the hospital originally was to enable Jewish people to have their own health care. And at that point in time, there was Christian missionaries that were taking over the hospitals and directing the hospitals, and trying to do as much devastation as possible in regards to the Jewish spirituality at that point in time. So I think from 1854 to 1948, in the Jewish quarter, it would be the main place, and then in Katamon will be taken over afterwards. I think in the 70s, it was in Hiskiova Melech Street in Old Katamon itself, respectively. I think the Jerusalem Foundation will also help the committee, will also work in line with the Sephardi Community Council also at that stage in time. So that is very, very interesting tidbits, which is very important, because this Miskabel Dach Hospital was a very, very important, let's just say, asset of the place in itself, respectively. Now let's talk a bit more. Three main, let's just say three. The Sephardi community was, I think, most recently headed by Yechaskel Zakai, and the organization had been headed, I think, at a later stage, or more recent stage, by Avram Shalom, if I'm not mistaken. And we talked about the association law will branch out the committee into various different parts in of itself. Now, three notable people that were part of this committee included Rabbi Yosef Chaim Kohen. I think he lived between 1851 to 1921. He was a Maghrebi rabbi originally. Also a famous historian, Moshe David Gaon, who we'll speak about in a minute. He was a Bosnian historian between the years 1889 to 1958. And Rabbi Chaim David Hazan, who was a rabbinical scholar between 1790 to 1869, which we'll speak about also. Now, just say something about Moshe David Gaon, a famous historian. He was born reported over in Macedonia in 1889. He would get a degree, I think, in the Vienna University. He immigrated to Eretz Israel and would settle in Jerusalem. He was a schoolmaster in various primary schools in Jerusalem, I think in Izmir, also in Turkey, and in Buenos Aires in Argentina. He would return to Jerusalem and become a member at that point in time of the Sephardi Community Committee. And I think he was at the same time a municipal council member until his death in 1958. He was very active. He made many publications, among the most important 2-volume work published in 1928 and 1938 in the Bibliographical History Survey of Ladino Press. I think this bibliographical dictionary would include 2,750 rabbis, scholars, and notables born in Spain, province of France, Italy, Ottoman Empire, and the Balkans and the Middle East, and North Africa. Now, a great majority of these persons had visited Eretz Israel or emigrated there, also important figures. I think it was printed in 1928 and 1938. I think the second volume was a 750-page bibliographical dictionary, respectively. So he's a key member of the Sephardi Community Committee, also, which we have to point out. Now, who are the chief rabbis of the land of Israel? Now, the chief rabbinate itself of Jerusalem goes back all the way to the 1500s, we have to point out. But the official chief rabbi, I think, will veer off and starts in the middle of the 17th century, in the 1600s, in the mid-1600s. The first one was Rabbi Moshe Galante in 1664. I was then followed by Rabbi Moshe ben Shlomo ibn Chabib in 1689. Then Kamot 1702, Rabbi Abraham Rogiel would be the chief rabbi. Then Rabbi Abraham ben David Yitzchaki in the year 1715, he'd be about 17 years. Then Rabbi Benjamin HaKohen Mali in 1722. Rabbi Eliezer Nachum, another great rabbi we're talking about, from 1730. Rabbi Nisim Chaim Moshe Mizrahi from 1745. Kamot 1749. Rabbi Yitzchak HaKohen Rappaport to be, I think he was the first Ashkenazi chief rabbi, Ashkenazi origin rabbi. He's going to become a chief rabbi there. And it was followed by Rabbi Yisrael Yaakov Al-Ghazi, who he would take the premiership in 1754. And then Rabbi Raphael Miuchas would be in 1756. Rabbi Chaim Raphael ben Asher in 1771. 1772 we'll see Rabbi Raphael Moshe Bola. And 1773 we'll see Rabbi Yom Tov El Ghazi, and I think he would be for a long time period. And in 1802, Rabbi Moshe Yosef Mordechai Miuchas will be the next chief rabbi of Israel. So you can see this position was blossoming at that point in time. Very important responsibilities they will have. Rabbi Mordechai Levi would take on the premiership in 1805, and followed by Rabbi Yaakov Moshe Ayish in 1806. Rabbi Yaakov Koral in 1817, Rabbi Raphael Yosef Chazan in 1818. Rabbi Yom Tov Danon will take it up in 1821. 1824, we'll see another famous rabbi, Rabbi Shlomo Moshe Suzin, in the year 1824 that will be. Now, Rabbi Yonah Moshe Navon will take the role in 1836, and Rabbi Yehuda Navon in 1841. Then another famous rabbi, Rabbi Chaim Avram Gagin, will take the head role in 1841. 1848, we'll see a rabbi from the famous Kobo family, Rabbi Yitzchak Kobo, in 1848. 1854, we'll see Rabbi Chaim Nisim Abulafia. In 1861, Rabbi Chaim David Chazan will be in that year. 1869 to I think 1880, would see another famous rabbi who we mentioned about on various occasions before, Rabbi Avram Ashkenazi. And then next rabbi will be Rabbi Raphael Meir Panizel from 1880, and Rabbi Yaakov Shaul Elisha, very famous chief rabbi of Israel, between 1893 to 1906, we have the chief rabbi there. And Rabbi Yaakov Meir from 1906. 1907, Rabbi Eliyahu Moshe Paniziel. Rabbi Nachman Batita will take on the role, I think 1909. Rabbi, it happens to be Hilula, I think tonight at time of recording, in Tet Vav Elul, respectively. And then Rabbi Moshe Yehuda ben Rabbi Yosef Franco in 1912. And then Rabbi Nisim Yehuda Danon in 1915. That was followed by Rabbi Chaim Moshe Elisha in 1919, respectively. Which is very, very interesting. Many of the Elishas were great rabbis at that point in time. Then we see Rabbi Yaakov Meir afterwards will again take on the head role. And then it will be followed by Rabbi, I think once the formation of the State of Israel, Medinat Yisrael will be formed in 1948. There will be obviously the famous Rabbi Ben Zion Chai Meir Uziel, who we spoke about before. Then followed by Rabbi Yitzchak Nissim, which will have correspondence also. And then Rabbi Ovadia Yosef will be the chief rabbi in 1973 to 1983. At that point in time, it's split in the 80s. This committee did. It split into 6 different parts. 2 notable people that I think were connected very much at the time period of the committee was especially Rabbi Raphael Meir Paniziel, who was a chief rabbi. He was also Shlochei D'Rabbanan. He passed away in 1893. So he lived very much at the time period of the Miskav Medach hospital, and he was very, very well connected. He was one of the great rabbis of Jerusalem. He traveled to various countries, including Tunisia, Algeria, Morocco, going all over the different places. I think he went on mission on behalf of Hebron to Italy and established various importances over there. Peace, I think, between the Roman community over there. And he would, I think, have a tour of the Vatican, report over where maybe you would see the remains of temple vessels, if I'm not mistaken, and did various importances, and was a writer also. He was a famous rabbi. So that's one rabbi. Another rabbi that was very committed and connected to the Sephardi committee was Rabbi Chaim David Hazan, who lived between the year 1790 approximately to 1869. He passed away in Jerusalem, was buried in the Mount of Olives burial plot. I think it was Rishon LeZion. He was an Abbedin in Jerusalem and had a prime role in Izmir in Turkey, which, remember, at that point in time had a Bastion Jewish community. I think he was, obviously, Israel was part of the Ottoman Empire at that point in time. He passed away, I think, in Shvat, the month of Shvat. That's interesting. His contemporary at the time, remember, he was very connected with Chaim David Herzl to the Sephardi Community Council, was Rabbi Chaim Pelagi of Turkey, arguably one of the most famous Turkish rabbis of his time. And he was very much connected to various great rabbis. Rabbi Chaim David Herzl was sandwiched as the 26th Rosh Hashanah in between time periods of Rabbi Chaim Nissim Abulafia and Rabbi Avram Ashkenazi. Now, let's just say a word about him, because he was very, very integral in the role of the community in of itself. I think he learned Shechita at a young age. I think in 1840 he was appointed the head of the city rabbis and would serve in this position for 15 years. And would settle in Eretz Yisrael eventually. I think in 1855 he would be among the Jerusalem Bet Din, among with other great rabbis, Rabbi Moshe Ben Abisti, Rabbi Yitzchak Cordover, Rabbi Yitzchak Kalambro, Rabbi Abraham Amar, all great rabbis of the highest Kabbalah, and was appointed a deputy to Rabbi Chaim Nissim Abulafia, who was a Chacham Bashi at the time. And when he was ill, Rabbi Chazan would then take over that position, or fill it as a deputy, but will have that position, have the powers of it. And he would go on various missions on behalf of Jerusalem, traveling to various different places. I think he would even go to Vienna, if I'm not mistaken, at one specific point in time. And when he was chief rabbi, he was Chacham Bashi of Mishon Letzion, as they say. He worked on behalf of agricultural settlement in the land of Israel. And remember, this was, I think, connected to the Sephardi Community Council also. He would be in contact with Rabbi Tzvi Hirsch Kalisha. He would have great advice from, and would take part in the famous Kikar Batei Machshav project also. And most notably, I think at one point in time, there was a Chaim Tzvi, I think, initiative of Rabbi Chazan, and dignitaries also from Rabbi Schneerson and various other great rabbis would actually be correspondent to this. And within regards to agricultural work in the land of Israel, and very important things, to purchase land for cultivation, and infrastructure will be made to help the project expand at that point in time, and so on and so forth. He actually most famously lived in a neighborhood in Jerusalem called the Mishkanot Sha'anim, which is a neighborhood that was very much part of the Sephardi Community Council at that point in time. And I think at that point in time there was unfortunately some epidemics in Jerusalem, including cholera, if I'm not mistaken, at one stage in time. And he was in correspondence with the agricultural work with Rabbi Moshe Ben Avisti and Rabbi Chaim Tzvi Schneerson, as I said before. And there was connections with Frankfurt, for example. And but however, at that point in time, I think there was a more bad attitude from the Turkish government, which would cause some friction at that point in time. He himself passed away, the great Rabbi Yosef Chazan, I believe in the year 1869, and he was buried in he was buried in Har HaZeitin, the Mount of Olives burial plot over there. I think that's around near the Bukhari neighborhood, and that's Mount of Olives burial plot. I think most notably a neighborhood, a street in the Bukhari neighborhood, the Shchunat Bukharin, will actually be named after him in Jerusalem. That's another interesting. So this Sephardi Community Council had run really from the 13th century, from most famously from Nachmanides, and would go on all the way really in its prime to 1980s, and do various different important roles in Eretz Yisrael, building Eretz Yisrael, and for the Sephardi community as a whole. I thought it would be interesting as a special edition over here to speak about that. I think it complements very much what we're learning about in the series over here. So friends, everyone, please subscribe to the channel. We're nearing, at the moment, a staggering 7,500 members here on this channel over here, which is a phenomenal achievement. And we can't do that without you, friends, over here. So please subscribe to the channel. If anyone's interested in watching any of these videos, please share these videos also to other people, and to other people who join the community. We've also recorded about 1,250 biography videos of great Sephardi Rabbonim from the Ottoman countries, from the Ottoman country, from various different Spanish countries, from North African countries, also Asian countries, and all those different vicinities. So you can learn more about all of those great Chachamim of yesteryear, and so much more in this channel. We tour around Israel, so we like to go to different parts and explore the beauty of Eretz Yisrael. We record videos on the daily tidbit of Daf Yomi also, and to huge amounts. Please Thanks to everyone for watching this live, in-depth class within regards to the famous Sephardi Community Committee. Wishing you all a great day. Thanks for watching. Thank you.